Look up at your roof. Right now, just look up. What do you see? Take a good look. Shingles, concrete, ordinary materials, maybe some old sheet metal, maybe a TV antenna nobody has touched in 10 years. Now let me tell you something, and I know this sounds completely crazy. That roof right above your head could feed your entire family. No land, no machines, no chemical fertilizers, none at all. And the ongoing cost is basically nothing. Sounds insane, right? I get it. But this isn't a new idea. This isn't some trend cooked up by a bunch of Silicon Valley startup guys. This system has been around for over 2,000 years. People used it to survive droughts, wars, famines, everything life could possibly throw at them. And then we forgot about it. Completely. In less than 100 years. There's only one question I want you to hold on to from this point forward. Why didn't anyone tell me about this sooner? To understand where this system came from, you have to go back roughly 4,000 years. It didn't start in a university, not to a research lab. You have to go back to the city of Babylon, sitting right in the middle of what is now modern-day Iraq. Most people know Babylon for one thing. It is the legendary and lush Hanging Gardens of Babylon. It shows up in every history textbook. It gets listed as one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. But here's what the textbooks never mention. The Hanging Gardens were not just decorative. They were not built to impress tourists or foreign diplomats. They were a food system. Ancient Babylonian records, clay tablets discovered by archaeologists in the late 1800s, describe terraced garden structures rising several stories above ground level. On those terraces, farmers grew barley, lentils, onions, garlic, and dozens of varieties of herbs. All of it above ground. All of it on elevated platforms. All of it without a single square meter of traditional farmland. The engineering behind it was surprisingly simple. Thick layers of reed matting were laid across the stone terraces first. On top of that went a layer of bitumen, a natural tar-like substance that sealed the surface and kept moisture from rotting the structure underneath. Then came a mixture of crushed clay, animal manure, and organic waste. Not soil in the way we think of it today. A lightweight growing medium that held water, fed the roots and drained the excess without collapsing the structure below. The whole system was fed by a chain pump. Workers rotating handles to lift water from the Euphrates River up through a series of channels running along the edges of each terrace. Gravity did the rest. Water flowed from the top level downward, feeding every layer of plants before draining out at the base. The Romans got hold of this idea somewhere around the 1st century before the Common Era. And they did what Romans always did. They took someone else's good idea and scaled it up. Roman engineers adapted the Babylonian terrace system for rooftop use on private homes and public buildings throughout the empire. Archaeologists excavating the ruins of Pompeii, the city buried under volcanic ash, in 79 of the Common Era, found fired clay roof tiles with narrow drainage channels cut directly into them. Tiles specifically designed to support the weight of a growing medium and redirect water toward planted areas. These were not decorative features. These were functional agricultural components built directly into the architecture of the home. Written records from Roman agricultural writers like Columella and Pliny the Elder describe households growing lettuces, herbs, strawberries, and small fruiting plants directly on rooftop surfaces. These were not wealthy estates with large gardens. These were ordinary city homes in dense urban neighborhoods where ground-level land simply did not exist. The roof was the farm. That idea, that the roof of your home is a productive surface, not just a covering, was completely normal for thousands of years across multiple civilizations. It was not radical, it was not experimental, it was just common sense. By the 10th century, rooftop food production had quietly spread. Across a wide band of human civilization, you could find versions of it in the cities of the Byzantine Empire, along the Mediterranean coastlines of North Africa, in the ancient urban centers of Persia, and across the Indian subcontinent. But it was in northern Italy where something important happened. Something that pushed rooftop growing from a useful practice into an absolute survival necessity. Around 960 of the Common Era, a series of severe droughts hit the agricultural regions of southern and central Europe. Harvest failed, livestock died. The supply chains that moved grain from rural farms into cities completely broke down. People living in cities faced a problem. Around 960 of the Common Era, that was almost impossible to solve using conventional methods. There was no land inside the city walls to farm. Every square meter of ground-level space was already occupied by buildings, roads, and marketplaces. But there was one surface that existed in massive quantities: rooftops. Farmers and ordinary city residents began doing something that must have looked completely ridiculous to outside observers at the time. They started hauling soil substitutes, mixtures of clay, straw, wood ash, and composted animal waste, up onto their rooftops. They built shallow wooden frames along the edges of flat roof sections to contain the growing medium. They planted whatever seeds they had available, fast-growing leafy vegetables. They also grew various hardy herbs, root crops that could survive in a shallow layer of growing medium. Within 2 growing seasons, significant portions of several northern Italian cities were producing food from above, not enough to replace everything lost in the drought, but enough to keep people alive, enough to make a real difference. What is genuinely remarkable is how fast this knowledge traveled. Within roughly 200 years, versions of this rooftop system had spread across cities throughout the Mediterranean basin. It moved from northern Italy into southern France, down through Spain, across into North Africa, and eastward through the trading routes that connected Europe to Persia and beyond. Nobody organized this. There was no government program, no agricultural extension service, no social media campaign. People saw it working in one city, traveled to the next, and built their own version. The knowledge moved the same way all useful knowledge moved in the ancient world. Person to person, neighbor to neighbor, one rooftop at a time. Nobody called it a system. Nobody gave it a name. They just called it staying alive. For roughly 1,000 years, from around the 10th century through to the early 1800s, rooftop food production was a normal, unremarkable part of urban life across large parts of the world. And then, in less than a single century, it almost completely disappeared. The Industrial Revolution did not just change how people worked, it changed how people thought about food, about cities, and about what a roof was actually for. As factories spread across England, Germany, and the northeastern United States, hundreds of thousands of people left rural areas and moved into industrial cities looking for wage work. Cities that had been built on a human scale, neighborhoods of 2- and 3-story buildings with flat or gently sloping roofs, were rapidly replaced by taller, denser structures designed to house as many workers as possible. In as little space as possible, these new buildings were engineered for load-bearing capacity, not agricultural production. The rooftops were covered with steep-pitched designs specifically intended to shed rain and snow quickly, not to support the weight of a growing medium. Factory smoke and coal dust settled on every exposed surface in industrial cities, making outdoor food production increasingly impractical, even on buildings where the roof structure could technically support it. But the single biggest factor was the rise of the centralized food supply. By the mid-1800s, railroad networks were moving food from rural farms into cities, faster and more cheaply than had ever been possible before. By the early 1900s, refrigerated rail cars made it possible to transport perishable food across entire continents without spoilage. And by the 1920s and 30s, the modern supermarket was beginning to take shape, a single building where a city family could purchase everything they needed to eat, without growing a single thing themselves. Why would anyone haul composted material up 5 flights of stairs to grow lettuce on a rooftop when a grocery store on the corner sold it for a few cents a bunch? The economics stopped making sense. And when something stops making economic sense, people stop doing it. And when people stop doing it, the knowledge of how to do it stops being passed down. Within 2 or 3 generations, the entire accumulated understanding of how to grow food on an elevated surface, knowledge that had been refined and improved across multiple civilizations over thousands of years, simply stopped existing in any practical form. It did not disappear because it stopped working. It disappeared because nobody needed it anymore, until they did. In the early 1970s, a group of landscape architects and environmental engineers in West Germany started asking a question that seemed almost too simple to take seriously. What if rooftops could be more than just weather barriers? Their initial experiments were small, test sections on the roofs of university buildings covered with different combinations of lightweight aggregate materials, drainage layers, and low-growing vegetation. The results surprised almost everyone involved. Not only did plants grow successfully on these rooftop test sections, but the buildings underneath showed measurable improvements in thermal performance. The rooftop growing medium acted as an insulating layer, reducing heat gain in summer and heat loss in winter. The buildings cost less to heat and less to cool, but it was the food production data that started getting serious attention outside of Germany. By the early 2000s, research programs at universities across North America, Europe, and Asia were publishing numbers that were difficult to ignore. A study from McGill University in Montreal found that a single square meter of properly designed rooftop growing space could produce between 4 and 5 kilograms of vegetables per year under normal growing conditions, without any synthetic fertilizers, without any pesticides, and without any irrigation beyond captured rainwater. Columbia University researchers in New York took it further. They modeled what would happen if just 20% of the rooftop surface area in a typical dense urban neighborhood was converted to productive growing space. The numbers came back remarkable. 20% rooftop coverage across a standard city block could supply enough fresh vegetables to meet roughly 30% of the nutritional needs of every household in that block every single year. Then in 2009, the city of Toronto did something no major North American city had ever done before. They passed a bylaw making green roofs mandatory on all new commercial, institutional, and residential buildings above a certain size. Not optional, mandatory. Within 5 years of that law taking effect, Toronto had added over 500,000 square meters of productive rooftop growing space to the city. Singapore went even further. The city-state, which imports over 90% of its food from other countries, launched a national program called the Sky Greens Initiative, building vertically rotating rooftop growing towers capable of producing vegetables at a yield rate 20 times higher per square meter than conventional ground-level farming. The ancient Babylonians would have recognized exactly what Singapore was doing. They just would have been impressed by how long it took everyone else to catch up. Here is where most people expect things to get complicated. They expect engineering diagrams and technical specifications and a list of materials that cost more than a used car. But the actual mechanics of a rooftop growing system are almost embarrassingly simple. There are 6 components. That's it, 6. And you can build all of them yourself over a single weekend. The first component is the waterproof membrane. This is the layer that sits directly on your roof surface and prevents any moisture from the growing medium above from penetrating into the structure of the building below. Modern versions of the membrane use durable EPDM rubber sheeting or a professional-grade heavy-gauge polyethylene liner, the same material used to build garden ponds. But here is what is interesting. The ancient Babylonians solved this exact problem using a double layer of woven reed matting coated with natural bitumen. It worked for decades without replacement. The principle has not changed in 4,000 years. The second component is the drainage layer. On top of the waterproof membrane goes a layer of material that allows excess water to move freely without staying in contact with the roots above. Coarse gravel works perfectly. So does crushed lava rock, which is significantly lighter. So does a purpose-built plastic drainage mat, available at most garden supply stores for a few dollars per square meter. The drainage layer serves 2 functions simultaneously. It prevents root rot by stopping water from pooling, and it creates a small reservoir of moisture that wicks upwards slowly during dry periods, reducing the need for manual irrigation. The third component is the growing medium itself, and this is where most people make their first big mistake. You cannot use regular garden soil on a rooftop. Regular soil becomes compacted when wet, gets incredibly heavy, and drains poorly in a confined, elevated environment. What you need is a lightweight growing mix. The standard formula used in most commercial rooftop systems is roughly 60% expanded clay aggregate or perlite, 25% coconut coir fiber, and 15% finished compost. This mixture weighs roughly half as much as conventional soil when dry, drains efficiently, retains adequate moisture between rainfalls, and provides enough nutrients to sustain productive growth for 1 to 2 full growing seasons before any amendment is needed. The fourth component is the water collection system. A rooftop is actually one of the most efficient rainwater collection surfaces that exists. A standard 20 square meter rooftop section, receiving average rainfall for most of the continental United States, will collect between 12,000 and 18,000 liters of water per year, and far more than the plants growing on that surface will ever consume. The key is directing that water where it is needed to where it is needed rather than letting it drain away. A simple perimeter channel cut into the growing medium frame, connected to a downspout leading to a storage container, captures and holds water between rain events. Gravity feeds it back to the plants through a series of shallow channels in the growing medium surface. No pump required, no electricity required. The fifth component is plant selection. Not everything grows well in a shallow, elevated growing environment, but an enormous range of food crops does. Lettuces, spinach, kale, Swiss chard, arugula, and most other leafy greens grow extremely well in as little as 10 to 15 centimeters of growing medium depth. Herbs, basil, thyme, oregano, rosemary, mint, cilantro are almost ideally suited to rooftop conditions, preferring the excellent drainage and high light exposure. Strawberries perform exceptionally well, spreading naturally across open growing surfaces and producing fruit reliably from the second season onward. Compact varieties of tomatoes, peppers, and cucumbers grow successfully in slightly deeper medium, around 20 to 25 centimeters, and produce yields comparable to ground-level container gardening. The sixth component is the self-composting cycle. This is the part that transforms a rooftop garden. From something you have to constantly maintain into something that gradually starts maintaining itself. Plant material that is trimmed, harvested, or naturally dies back gets chopped into small pieces and worked back into the surface of the growing medium rather than being removed. Beneficial microorganisms in the growing medium break this material down into nutrients that feed the next round of growth. Over time, typically by the second or third growing season, the biological activity in the growing medium becomes rich enough that the system begins producing a significant portion of its own fertility. You add less and less from outside, the roof feeds itself. Let's talk about what this actually costs and what it actually takes to build, because the numbers are going to be smaller than you expect. A functional rooftop growing system covering 20 square meters, roughly the size of a standard single-car garage roof, can be built for between $200 and $500 in total materials. That includes the waterproof liner and the drainage layer material, the initial batch of growing medium, basic perimeter framing lumber to contain the system, and a starter selection of plants or seeds. The build itself takes just 1 weekend. For 2 people working at a comfortable pace, not a rushed weekend, not an exhausting weekend, a normal Saturday and Sunday where you stop for lunch. In the first month after installation, the system looks sparse, the plants are small. The growing medium looks bare in places, this is normal. The ecosystem is establishing itself below the surface before it becomes visible above it. By month 3, the surface is covered. Leafy greens are ready for their first harvest. The drainage channels are working. The system is starting to function as designed. By month 6, you are harvesting regularly. A 20 square meter system at this stage is producing enough fresh leafy greens and herbs to meaningfully supplement the weekly grocery needs of a family of 4. Not replace them entirely, supplement them. By the second year, something shifts. The growing medium has developed biological activity that plant growth accelerates noticeably. Strawberries that were planted in the first season are spreading and producing heavily. Self-seeding herbs are filling gaps without any intervention. The system is beginning to manage itself. By the third year, the maintenance requirement drops to almost nothing beyond regular harvesting. The most common mistake people make in the first season is overwatering. Because the growing medium drains efficiently and the rooftop environment tends to be windier and more exposed than ground level, the surface dries out faster visually than it actually is at root depth. People see dry-looking surface material and add water that the roots do not yet need. The second most common mistake is planting crops that need deep root systems. Large squash varieties, full-size corn, deep-rooted root vegetables, in growing medium that is not deep enough to support them. Stick to the crop categories that work well in shallow elevated environments for the first 2 seasons. Expand into deeper medium crops once you understand how your specific rooftop system behaves through different weather conditions. One structural consideration that cannot be overlooked. Before building any rooftop system, you need to understand the load-bearing capacity of your roof structure. A fully saturated growing medium at 20 centimeters depth weighs approximately 90 to 120 kilograms per square meter. A 20 square meter system at full saturation adds between 1,800 and 2,400 kilograms of distributed load to the roof. Most modern flat-roofed residential and commercial structures are engineered to handle this. Most older steep-pitched residential roofs are not. If you are unsure, a structural engineer can assess your specific roof. For a few $100s, money that is absolutely worth spending before you build anything, come back to that image at the beginning. Your roof, right above your head, sitting there right now doing exactly one thing, simply keeping the rain out. The Babylonians looked at that same surface over 4,000 years ago and saw something completely different. They saw a productive farm, they saw a food supply that could not be flooded, that could not be trampled, could not be seized by someone simply walking across the ground. They saw a path to independence. What they deeply understood, and what we spent the better part of a century completely forgetting, is that the most reliable food system village is the one closest to exactly where you actually live. Not a supply chain that runs through 3 separate distribution centers and 2,000 miles of refrigerated trucking. Not a store that runs out of stock village. Whenever something goes wrong, 3 whole states away. The surface directly above your head. The ancient Romans did not build rooftop gardens because they were ahead of their time. They built them because they were paying attention. They looked at what they had, a roof, some sunlight, some rainfall, some organic material, and they figured out how to make it work. That is not complicated agriculture. That is just observation. That is just patience. That is just not wasting a surface that is already there. Your roof is already there. It is already collecting sunlight every single day. It is already catching every drop of rain that falls on your property. The only question is whether you let all of that go to waste or whether you decide to do what people figured out 4,000 years ago. Look up at your roof one more time. What do you see now?